some thoughts, at least if you have, be good. For those who would like to contact me or something, my email is also on the screen. So you can always write me a few queries on, if you want to have a discussion on any of the topics which we discussed. But please bear in mind, I might take a little time to come back to you. My usually the inbox is quite flooded with emails, so I will get back to you, but it might take some time sometimes. Um, Good. It's tricky to have a session either before the lunch or after the lunch. Okay, so before the lunch, the audience are essentially quite impatient to complete things and go to their lunch. And after lunch, they are quite relaxed and usually doze off. This happens with the classes as well, right? I mean, many of you as teachers know it. So hopefully, I will sustain enough interest that the 100 odd participants which we have now stay till the end of this session before, or you can do a working lunch today. You can always listen to me and also have lunch. Be relaxed, but please listen to it and probably generate a discussion at the end of it. So in this session, I would like to bring to your attention on some of the aspects which usually we forget in the charm of technology. Okay, and this is probably what we call contracts, which are very important. So essentially we'll talk about these contractual innovations and how they sustain and BIM and how BIM sustains them. And one of those contractual innovations what we saw in the last few years is the integrated project delivery. There are quite few challenges which are associated with it, implementation of that, but we will talk a few innovations like that. So I would structure my presentation surrounding BIM and how it sustains, for example, the lean construction, which is also coming up a lot nowadays, and also the contract paradigms like integrated project delivery. So this is the broad agenda of this presentation. Hopefully, do it in the this effect. So I'll come back to this, okay? Because this is the slide I think where we will take a diversion from our earlier presentation, okay? So in our earlier presentation, after this slide, we went into the charms of the technology. We saw nice, colorful slides on, how 3D can be modeled, 4D can be done, this can be done, that can be done, and what will be there, right? So let's come back in this presentation and just reflect back on this essential term called process, right? Process is the key to the entire BIM philosophy. If you do not have a process which can sustain BIM, there is no use of BIM. Okay, as we say, to put it very bluntly, a fool with a tool is still a fool. Okay, so if you have the nicest tool in the world, still if you are a fool, you still have you are still a fool. Okay, or the other kind of saying which says garbage in and garbage out, right? So if you do not have the people and processes which can sustain a technology, the usefulness of that technology is not evident and you don't see the returns. Okay, you might be promised many things by the vendors, you might be promised many things from the software vendors, but then if you do not have necessary processes inbuilt in your organization, you will never see the okay, same thing happen today as well. Okay, see, I mean, if you look at it, if I have a DVD player at home, it's not just having a nice DVD player, right? You should have a technology which can sustain how to write a DVD before I play it. And then you should have a lot of processes, you should have places where I can buy these DVDs, etc. Okay, I'm still in the world of DVD players. Now it's Netflix and other things, right? So all these kinds of things have inbuilt processes which will sustain the system. Okay, the technology for electric vehicles is out there. Okay, and if you look at Tesla and other things, they have made large strides in terms of electrical vehicle market. But then still you don't see a lot of electric vehicles in the market in India right now, because there is no necessitating infrastructure which can help you charge your vehicle anywhere, right? So there are fundamental process related problems which will sometimes not give you the benefits of BIM. Okay, so you say that the BIM is there, I've installed this version, the latest version of this cutting edge BIM software, your labs will have that, etc., etc. But then it will be like like an ornament in your lab. That's all, because you don't have a process which benefits out of this software. You do not have people who can actually exploit the software to get benefits out of it. So the most important consideration and the most important thing probably you might also have to teach your students if you are faculty is that BIM is just a software. There should also be a process which will sustain the BIM so as to derive benefits out of it. Okay. Same thing happened when people transitioned from normal blueprints. I don't know how many of you remember the T scales which we had to nicely draft nice complex building drawings to the CAD based drawings, right? People had the same problem because they did not have enough skilled draftsmen in CAD. They did not have plotters to actually print these out. There are so many problems which people have slowly addressed and slowly put in the process, and now you have a nice system and process in place to have that CAD into as part of your building. Now I don't see any people doing the blueprint, right? Blueprint is because you have those Xerox papers and you give so many prints out of it, you draw it, etc. Now people don't do it at all, the stenciling, etc. Similarly, at some point you transition from this CAD based environment to a BIM based environment, but then you should have your processes ready for it. Okay, if you still have a BIM software but you are taking prints of drawings out and then you are still discussing on a drawing, then you are not really ready for BIM kind of environment. Okay, so a particular thing, and I've seen that in some of the topics which probably will come up in the next few sessions. For example, is a BIM execution plan, right? These are very, very important things. The BIM users which you should say are important for this project. Okay, so those are the things which you have to put it in. Okay, and how do I put it in? I put it in writing through contracts. Okay, so I have to define my contracts. My contract should also be BIM ready. Okay, so that is what we will talk about today when we talk about processes and BIM ready kind of contractual delivery systems. Okay, not all contracts are suitable for BIM. Okay, so there are problems with if you have a standard form of contract which you are executing BIM for, then you will have some problems associated with the execution of the BIM itself. Okay, so we will talk about those items here. Okay, you can't just put a single line in your contract saying I will have BIM on this project. Nothing will happen out of it. Okay, because what will happen is people will say, okay, nice, it's a nice term, let's put it that way, and then let's do whatever we want to do. Okay, so if you want to integrate and derive benefits out of it, you have to word your clauses properly, and you also have to put your people and processes in place. And that is what we will look at now. So this is by one of my PhD students, and I like this slide, so I just show it everywhere where I go. So essentially, when you look at BIM, it's like the elephant in the room. It was actually, but like this 6 blind men and elephant. I don't know if you heard about this story. So each of these blind men, you are touching different parts of this BIM model, and you are saying, okay, this is how the BIM model should be, and etc., etc. Okay, but we are not getting the bigger picture. That's the problem. Okay, so the bigger picture, when you understand that, then only you derive the benefits. Okay, for someone it's a rope, for some it's a spear, but it's essentially an elephant. Okay, that's what we have to understand. Okay, and with all the different layers, right? 2D, 3D, 4D, 5D, whatever you have, what you are doing is you are giving this kind of information systems, right? You're saying it's not a rope, but it's a tail, hair length is 100 centimeters, tail length is this, etc., etc. You are giving the details of those parameters of each of these things. But still, the major problem is to address that elephant in the room, right? That is the process, okay? Where uh, I do not just touch that individual pieces of elephant and understand, okay, this is what I have, but I take a step back and say, okay, this is how the elephant looks like, right? So that's the major thing which the BIM processes should facilitate. Now, coming to a construction paradigm, the years and these kinds of things would be your different kinds of people or contractors who are there on the project. So some of them would be working entirely on the mechanical part of it. Some of them would be working on the electrical part of it. Okay, if you are probably building a metro station, metro rail project, some of them will be working just on the traction. Some of them are working on the station building. Uh, these are very compartmentalized zones. Okay, so people do not really understand what's happening in the other thing. Okay, other, so I build myself and I optimize for my own project, and in that process I miss the bigger picture. So that is the biggest problem of our construction, because it's a very decentralized industry. Probably we are the most fractured industry of all the industries in the world. Okay, uh, nowhere in other industry you see a mom and dad kind of enterprise like what we see. Everyone is a contractor. If you look at our own systems, there are thousands of small micro or nano organizations, companies. Okay, this guy is a mestri or a builder. He says, okay, I am a contractor, you give a contract to me, I will build your house, and you actually give it to it based on some word of mouth saying that, okay, my friend actually hired this fellow and this fellow is all right. Now, if I have these kinds of contractors, and this is not the same, this is a little bit more organized when it comes to larger projects, but still people work in their own silos. They work in their own mechanical part, their own thing, and very often we miss the entire big picture. So you will see that there are a lot of conflicts on site. Okay, that guy will say, see, we are not doing because the other person is not providing us information, or the other person is delayed, so I am delayed. So you have lot of conflict on the site, you have lot of problems because of this uh, fractured nature of our industry, and we not looking at the bigger picture. So the idea of this presentation is to look at some of the ways in which we can facilitate looking at this bigger picture in construction. Okay, it's pretty close to what in our construction again has this problem of information. Okay, so essentially we need to have processes which capture the project needs effectively, and then it gives clarity in expectations to various people. Okay, so what I tell you as a client, you as a contractor should know exactly what I'm telling you. Okay, it's not like my left is your left or something like that, right? I say it should be the left of me, but you take it the left of you, it will be different, etc. So there should be some clarity in expectations. What is that which is being conveyed to the contractor or subcontractors? Then the process should be mature enough to handle changes. Okay, change is not an exception but a norm in our construction. You don't see that whatever plan I have given you at the start of the project, people it's probably either people are faking it, or they are entirely really good planners if they say everything went according to the plan. Okay, nothing goes according to plan in construction, at least on large construction projects. And you see all the things where people say a lot of cost overrun, time overrun, everything, because our processes sometimes may not be mature enough to handle these changes. Okay, so when you are looking at a BIM implementation, you have to look at process maturity, the way in which the use of BIM is handled, and how BIM is being used to handle changes and handle day-to-day business on the project. Okay, so that's how you have to look at it, and there is a cost to entire thing. Okay, so there is always a trade-off. You might want everything in the world, right? I mean, like what we were discussing earlier, you want all your workers to have these Microsoft HoloLens and then do jobs on your site, but the cost may not be justifying what you are telling. Okay, it might be prohibitive. If you look at HoloLens right now, it's about 3 or 4 lakh rupees, if I'm not wrong, and that's not an investment which you probably are putting on each and every worker on a construction site. Okay, so there is a cost to implementation of any technology, and then you have to analyze them with the benefits you are receiving out of it, and only then you can understand what is the sort of BIM I want to implement on this project. Okay, so if I take into account all these things, the needs, the expectations, the maturity of the people and processes in my organization, and the cost involved in this entire thing, I might zero in on only some of the uses, some of the functionalities of BIM. Okay, so that is what we talk about when we talk about BIM execution plans. When we say to them that, it's not like we have to implement everything, whatever is out there. Okay, probably for this project, we just use 3D all bad. Okay, so that is the decision you have to make on a project, and that is the first and foremost thing which you do it. And how do you do it? You incorporate into contracts. Okay, so you say that this is the kind of contract where I say that this is the BIM use which I am looking at, 3D visualization is what I am looking at, and this is in the scope of architect. So you have to generate the 3D model, you generate a walkthrough, you generate this kind of rendering, whatever you require, you put it in the contract so that people know whose responsibility it is to generate it. Okay, that is very, very important. Okay, so to understand how to look at this BIM as a process, we will take a step back and understand how the information model has changed. Okay, and why we need BIM and the processes to support the BIM. Okay, so in about 5 minutes, I will just discuss this model. Okay, it's an interesting model. So earlier, this is the model which probably some of us are accustomed to. Okay, this is what we call the broadcast communication world, where this is I'll take the example of news which comes to you, right? So what will happen? There are these events which are reported by some people. There is a centralized editor or someone like that who collates this events, and then what she does is she says, okay, these are the events which are of interest, and they broadcast to certain other people, right? So this is the information world which we know of, like your news channels, okay, or newspapers, for example. They collate and then say, okay, this should go on front page, should go on the third page, this should not even be there in the newspaper or something, and then you subscribe to it every morning, you take it, and then you say, okay, this is the information which is there. Okay, this is the news out there. Okay, similar thing existed when you go to a website, right? The website designer actually says, okay, this is the kind of information which you probably are looking at, and this is what I am providing. Okay, so this is the website world or the newspaper world, okay, which we were there some decades earlier. But what about today? And then, of course, you have a feedback mechanism where you talk to the broadcaster. You say, you do this letter to the editor kind of thing, where you say, okay, this event, whatever is reported is wrong or something like that. You do that. But that's about it. This is a predominantly a one-way communication system. Okay, if you look at it, and this is the same thing which was happening in our construction sites as well, where there is a planner. Okay, this guy is probably your project planner. This guy is the planning department. He collates information from your structural designer, everyone, and then probably gives out schedules to your contractors. Okay, and then the contractors work, and then they report back to this guy, and predominantly very and control. Is that happening? And this is many of you would resonate with me if you look at this world, right? Today everyone is a reporter. Okay, today everyone generates information. It's not like there are a few people who generate information and the other people receive the information. Today it's a two-way world. Everybody does it. Okay, if you are on an island or you are on this or something, and it's a social network world, right? Everything is on cloud. You Twitter, You tweet, sometimes your tweet makes news and then it leads to all kinds of things. So it's essentially a two-way communication system. Okay, there is no broadcaster in nowadays. Okay, you tweet and then it goes. You have a news, you just take a click and then you put it on your Instagram or whatever it is. So today's world, the information is all very web, two-way communication systems which are there. Okay, gone are those days where I subscribe to a news and then I see what is happening. Nowadays, everybody generates news. Everybody subscribes to very different things. Okay, and then nowadays Google is also matching your news interests and then generating many different things which are very particular to you, right? Google is trying to take that role of broadcaster or something in Google News if you are subscribed to, but still you are having different other outlets where you are getting information from. Okay, and this is what the world is now, and that is what we have to change to on the construction sites as well. Gone are those days where the planners are just giving the information and the site is following. Nowadays you have this two-way, because you have even your supervisors with a smartphone on the construction site. There is a lot of uh, potential for getting nice information from the site back to the planning in a real time mode. Okay, so there is an information generation happening everywhere in nowadays. Okay, so just to summarize this information decentralization which is happening, only professionals used to produce content earlier. Nowadays everyone produces content. Okay, again, editors screen and edit. Nowadays it's about ranking votes, right? Viral videos, viral tweets. It's about how you rank it, right? And broadcasting one to many, but not shared many, which we are changing. This whole idea is given out in that paper. If some of you are interested, please go to that Raymond Levitt. It's a open access journal. It's very interesting towards project management 2.0. So even that's what we are seeing, right? I mean, earlier the military, if you look at it, it's much more command and control. Okay, there's a person who is commander who used to give and soldiers used to follow, but now you are go more into the commando mode, right? You have an objective which is given to the team, they decide and then make a surgical strike and come back or something like that. So it's much more decentralized. The centralized way, which the CPM and PERT tells us, is probably living out its life. Okay, where you decide on the dates, you decide on when to execute which path, and you also decide which is a critical activity and tell whom to work at what pace. And that's all a very centralized way in which you are planning things, and that may not work in a decentralized mode. Okay, nowadays you have project management where changes are happening on the field very very quickly. Okay, you see suddenly there is a flooding in one of the foundation pits, right? The earlier thing is you relay it back to the planner, who will relay it back to the manager and then understand what's the directive, etc. Nowadays it's on WhatsApp, or you just call up and then say, you broadcast, you put a message on the group saying this is the thing, and then you will have to get immediately the feedback. So it's a much more decentralized way where you give much more power to the edge, where you say, okay, you take some decisions based on certain uncertainties. Okay, we talk about what we call the VUCA world, right? Uncertainty is there, volatility is there, and therefore the teams have to take a lot of decisions in a decentralized manner. Okay, and that's what we are seeing when we have lot of complicated structures which are coming. We are seeing that it's a very radically decentralized and participative world which we are staying in construction projects, and that is very important. Okay, uh, if you look at the traditional project management models, that may not work today. We have to be more agile, we have to be more lean. All these things, agile, lean, in a sense they talk about your dexterity to changing environment. Okay, that's what you are. So you should have people who can understand and work on this. Okay, therefore it's important to have this decentralization inbuilt, and that's where BIM can help. When you have BIM 360 or BIM Autodesk or whatever BIM applications you have, they give information to the edge in a real-time manner, and then Therefore, the people on the edge or people who are in the construction, they can take very informed decisions when you have a BIM. But your BIM should facilitate that. You should have a process which will facilitate the end user to take certain decisions on the project. Okay. So we have talked about all these things, but the problem is we have to have contracts which support this responsibility decentralization. Okay, and that's where these new forms of contracts called IPD or lean contracts, etc., will come into picture. Okay, so in a decentralized world, you want to have some amount of integration to be there, and that integration is provided by your contractual processes. Okay, why do I need integration? Finally, I don't want to go back to my elephant story. Okay, so with all these things, I don't want people to behave in such a way that it is detrimental to my. So we're not stopped from information to be disseminated and decentralized in this world because of the very complex nature of the project. Look at the amount of money which is there in some of the projects, right? Some of the projects are thousands of crores, where you have very remote teams working on remote sites, very complex environments. You can't expect them to come for each and every decision to a project manager to take decisions on. So you give some amount of freedom to the site engineers, project supervisors, etc. And in fact, as if you are in the headquarter of an organization, and give that kind of freedom to the project manager on the site as well. So in that case, you still have to have some kind of integration across these various participants, so as to get some sense to the entire thing, whatever is happening. Okay, so that integration should happen. Okay, so two dimensions of integration. One, it should happen across the project life cycle. That means it should happen, so whatever you do in design, it should be done in construction, it should be done in operation and demolition. The other one is it should happen across different people who are participating in a single phase. For example, if I take design, there are number of designers who work on a single project. Okay, there might be a structural agency, there might be 3 or 4 structural designers on the same project. There could be a number of people who are working on HVAC systems. There could be some people working on pre-engineered, pre-cast things. So all these guys should come together and work under that single environment where you are giving value to the project. Okay, and what are those processes which will help me bringing all these people together and talk the same talk? Okay, because the incentives are not aligned. Okay, as structural engineer, if I do something, I might get some money, but as a other engineer, that is probably against my entire incentive. The incentive always align to this chaos. Okay, so I'll come back to this again. Okay, there are a lot of information dependencies. That's what BIM is coming up. Okay, but how do I use it? That's where the process comes in. Okay, so decentralization and this kind of fracturing also comes from various platforms you work. Okay, all these should have interoperability. Okay, they all speak different languages, sometimes literally different languages. Okay, sometimes you might have a Korean contractor who is looking after a tunnel boring machine. You might have a Japanese contractor who is looking at something else, and then you might have a Indian contractor who is in a joint venture with this Korean guy operating certain things. So you have people from all kinds of trades, all kinds of geographical regions, all kinds of complexities you can think of. Everything will be on a construction project. Okay, so that's the problem of decentralization. You have to bring integration to get this coordination running. Otherwise, how do I coordinate between all these guys? That's the idea of this problem. Okay, and finally, this integration and ownership should be there. That is the issue, and that is what we'll see what philosophies can help us. I am spending time on these things because there might be a new philosophy which can come later on. Okay, but then the problems which it tries to address are these. Okay, essentially it is trying to address how do I integrate these decentralized, not always aligned, stakeholders who are working in the project. Okay, so let's look at this. Okay, what are some of the things? Okay, Now, what we have found out over time is that BIM has synergies with certain kinds of management philosophies. Okay, so done across, they have seen that when I use BIM in certain management paradigm, like lean construction, for example, or integrated project delivery, there are some very nice synergy which is created, which will help you derive good benefits out of BIM. Okay, so we will talk about two major things from now on. Probably I'll spend about 10 minutes each, or maybe about 15 minutes each on these two things, and then open up floor for discussion. So the first thing what we will talk about is the lean, and the other thing is about IPD and how BIM helps lean, BIM helps IPD, and how they help BIM in return. Okay, so how does lean help BIM? How does BIM help lean? And the same thing with IPD. That's what we will talk in the next few, next half an hour or so. So BIM and lean, that's what we will talk now. So the core concept of lean is this, okay? Identify waste and eliminate it, okay? That's what it says, okay? Wherever there is waste, you eliminate it. And this is what you reflect in BIM as well, right? When you are saying clash detection, you are eliminating the wasteful reduction, rework, and other things are considered waste in lean, which you are taking. Lean is a very interesting concept. If you are not familiar with it, you please go ahead and study that as well. But lean construction is a good paradigm. Okay, so just to understand this, okay, so for example, if you're an optimist, I don't know how many of you know this paradigm, right? You say that the glass is half full, right? And if you're a pessimist, you say it's half empty, right? But if you're a lean thinker, what you should probably say is, why is that glass twice as big as it should be? Why can't I use a small glass? Because my requirement is only that much more. So a lean thinker or a lean philosophy talks about optimizing things, and that's where BIM can help you. Okay, and to do this optimization on construction, you need production systems which will minimize waste not only on materials but also on time and effort. Okay, so if you are working a lot, that's a waste. Okay, if you are doing smart work, that's good. If you are doing hard work, that's bad. Okay, hard work is not rewarded, smart work is rewarded. That's the lean philosophy. Okay, you might be working for 10 hours, 12 hours, but if your output is not there, you might be working for 2 hours, you are producing the same output. I like the guy who was working for 2 hours. And so that is the philosophy. And you look at bringing in this concept of production, productivity into construction from a lean perspective. So how does BIM help here? Okay, BIM helps essentially in the coordination. What you see when you talk about lean, much of it rests on coordination. Okay, and one key principle what the lean gurus or the lean management guys will always subscribe to is ultimate coordination between the stakeholders. How do I ensure that in the same language BIM comes in? And you see that visualization is the major aspect. Okay, so and that is where you see BIM helps lean a lot. Okay, because part of lean is about bringing all these people together in what we call a big room meeting. Okay, so you have a big room meeting every week or 2 weeks, depending on the kind of project you are in, where all these 20, 30 odd contractors who are working on the project will come and discuss what are the constraints they are facing. Okay, they say, see, this is the festival season, the labor has gone out, they are not coming back, what to do, etc. Some people will say, and they will say that, you see, whatever you said us to deliver on this time, we may not deliver it because of this problems. Or someone will say the tower crane we thought would be installed by this time, but then there was a technical snag there, so we are delayed. Okay, so there are constraints which are put up by different people. Some people might say, see, the government has banned this quarrying of fine aggregate, so the concrete cannot be manufactured, so we are stuck. So then the big meeting tries to address these things and then try to coordinate people among people. Okay, so for example, if one guy is actually stopping the work of the other guy, then the big meeting will help understand how this can be resolved. Okay, so that's the idea of a big room meeting, and that's what Lean subscribe to. It's very similar to an agile meetings which you see, okay, or a toolbox meeting which you see. Sometimes it can be a toolbox meeting as well. Okay. Now, in a big room, what we saw was, and this was done by many studies, and they found out that if you display a BIM model of the site in a big room meeting, the efficiency of the discussions actually rise like anything. Okay, because what we saw was earlier when there was no BIM model in Lean, people used to spend a lot of time explaining others what exactly their problem is. Okay, so they used to say, see in grid A5, then people say, where is grid A5? Then they will bring a lot big drawing on the board and say, see in this part we have a problem because there is this problem here, etc., etc. And if the meeting was for 1 hour, about 30 to 40 minutes went away in describing the problem to the people. Okay, whereas when you have a BIM model, you can just display it in the big room, and then that half an hour of your explanation could be done in 5 minutes, because now people are seeing. So they are already getting the information input through their eyes, and they have that vision input already. All you have to do is to aid, saying that, see that pillar, okay, which is probably there. See, if I say that pillar, it's difficult for you, but if I just draw this pillar here and say, see in this pillar, this part I have a problem, you will immediately understand. Okay, so because it's easy to visualize, and now you will then direct the discussion saying, okay, what's the problem there, etc. So using BIM as a visualization aid in big rooms was found to be extremely effective. Okay, and then therefore many Lean implementations now say that you should have a BIM background. Okay, at least the visualization use, you should have it, so that these big room meetings become very, very efficient. Okay, the other thing is, as part of Lean, you do this. Okay, what you do is every week you come back and then you say that, okay, what's the work you have done in the last week? Okay, and then you want to compare it with what was planned. Okay, this is probably what you do in your Scrum meetings in Agile, etc. as well. So this is what you do, right? You see what you planned for the week. After this week, all the people will come in and then say, this is what we have done, and you want to see, okay, what was the progress with what is planned. Okay, it's very difficult if you have a large project to collate this information and generate some kind of report and that. With a BIM, it's very easy. Okay, so you can really visualize what is there and what is happening. And in fact, many a times intuitions were generated because of the visualization aspect. Okay, because of the information aspect which was displayed on the BIM. So it helps you in terms of visualizing. It helps you in terms of better coordination and also efficient information processing. That's why BIM can help a lot when you have a Lean construction which is there. Okay, now we'll come to this in a moment. One more thing which I want to talk about in Lean plus BIM is, it's also found that Lean processes help BIM a lot in terms, like if you have a combined call meeting where you discuss, etc., the BIM uses like clash detection and these kinds of things are pretty efficient, because now you have all the people in the room. They can bring in their own expertise, and then they can tell that, okay, there could be a problem in this part of the building, etc. So your coordination to get these uses like clash detection and other 4D visualizations, etc., become much more effective in terms of their value add to the project. Okay, so the Lean and BIM, they feed on each other, and they become much more useful when they are used together rather than in isolation on construction projects. Now, some concerns remain on using BIM on projects. Okay, what are these? The major concern is about the privacy of the data or the accessibility of data. Sometimes as a client, you don't want some kind of data to be accessed by certain subcontractors. So how do I shield my data from different contractors? That's one thing which you want to look at. The other thing is, who owns this BIM model? Okay, so that's again, because you see that all these guys are talking to a shared model. Now, who owns that model becomes a very important thing. Okay, and this is something which we are now looking at a major problem in our construction sites in India as well. Okay, this is the problem which is coming up, where you say that BIM will be used on a project in a contract, but then when you go on to the contract, nobody takes responsibility of that. Okay, saying that, see, you said BIM is useful, my portion is generating this 3D model I've given you. Now, what you do with the model, I don't own it. Okay, so that's the problem now. Many of the construction sites are facing in the country because of lack of this contractual backing and the procedural backing to own the model and change the model, etc. Okay, so if I have a common data environment, who is responsible for it? Okay, if there is a mistake, who owns it up? Okay, who will give compensation? All these kinds of bigger problems are now propping up all over the country. Okay, so this is a very imminent problem, which is evident problem right now in the country, where people are looking at this and then saying, yeah, this is a big problem. Okay, because what happens now, the structural engineer systems, ETABS or ANSYS or something like that. Now, once the designs are done, I give the detailing to some outsourced BIM engineer on the project. Usually clients are now looking at BIM managers. The BIM manager will take this thing and then develop a BIM model for you, because this is the thing which is happening now. Now, if there is a mistake in that structural design, who will own up? Is it the translating guy or the structural guy? We don't know. Okay, so right now it's not really there in the problem. Okay, so that's the problem right now. There are many other such kinds of bigger problems which we have to look at when we are looking at BIM on projects. Okay, and one interesting thing is this. Okay, BIM cannot achieve much if it is tied down by contractual constraints. Okay, for example, if you whatever you do, I need a hard copy of signed and stamped drawing. Okay, from this kind of agency, then I will issue you good for construction drawing and signed and stamped with date. Then only it will be working on your site. Then you do not have much use of BIM. Okay, so if you have contractual constraints, procedural constraints, where you see people you know not really willing to use the digital form, but then hard copies, etc., then you have a big problem. Okay, and many of the BIM models really work when the clients and contractors, they all work as a team. Okay, it doesn't work when you have an arm's length contract, when there is distrust. Okay, when you don't trust the contractor, it doesn't work actually. So that is where the IPD comes into picture. Okay, so the whole idea of integrated project delivery, which I will spend about 15 minutes from now on, will come into picture to understand how to best utilize this idea of impeccable coordination and collaboration between various stakeholders on the project, where you want to all these guys to work as a team, right? No matter what their incentives are for this project, they have to work as a team to win it. Okay, it's almost like an IPL team. Okay, so these guys are from various countries, etc., but then they come together as a team and win that IPL trophy for you, right? Similar thing, you want that to happen on a construction project, where there is all these guys will work together for the project and go out. This may not happen usually. Okay. If I am a construction contractor, I want to book my profits first. Okay, I don't really care about how much energy the building would save in its operations, because that's not my problem. That's the operations and maintenance guys problem. Okay, so you don't really achieve that kind of life cycle outlook on construction projects because of the incentives. As a construction contractor, I would book my profits at the end of construction, get out of this project. I don't care really about whether if I use this material, if I still have a cost, oversize, etc. If it reduces a lot of energy at some concerned, because I am not there on the project at that time. Okay, so the incentives are not always aligned. So in that sense, I want to find out a contracting structure which will align these incentives so that people will work towards the objective of that project. Okay, so that is what IPD is all about. Okay, IPD, the full form is integrated project delivery. Okay, now the emphasis on integrated. Okay, it says that I want to integrate all my project participants to perform certain things on the project. Okay, that is what integrated project delivery means. And this is the definition which uh, this is probably a little outdated slide. Okay, because probably this is not a draft now. You can look at it. This is the American Institute of Architects. You can look at their IPD guide. They have a nice definition. It says integrated project delivery is a project delivery method distinguished by a contractual agreement between minimum owner, design, and builder. It's not there is a architect's agreement with a design agreement with designer, and then a contract, general contract with the contractor. It's a tripartite agreement. Okay, it's a tri-party agreement where the builder, the designer, all of contract. Okay, so that is important for those of you who understand a little bit on contracts. It's a single contract. Okay, now the most important thing is risk and reward are shared. Okay, so it means that if there is a loss, all of you will lose. If there is a gain, all of you will gain. Okay, it's not like, okay, construction is done, you book your profit. Operations, you lose. No, it is a combined risk reward scenario. Okay, if all of you achieve certain objectives, you will gain a profit. Otherwise, all of you will lose a profit. Okay, this is a very, very radically different thinking from the usual contractual structures which you see on our construction right now. Okay, there is a single document on which all of them sign. In fact, this is like a single shared contractual model. Okay, we have seen a single data model earlier, common data environment. This is like a single contract model. Okay, contract environment where your risk and reward are shared. Okay, and it is linked to the project success. It's not linked to anything else. So if you optimize your own small thing and you book your profit, nothing is going to happen. Okay, because if the entire project fails, you will lose that money. Okay, now how do I operationalize this? Okay, so this is what you do in an IPD. What you will in the part, you also identify the contractor. Okay, you say that, okay, I have this nice vision of developing a this huge mall or whatever it is. Okay, so you think of any nice infrastructure or a building project. Let's say I have a huge commercial complex with mall on few floors, residential on few floors, office space on few floors, etc. Now I identify the builder as well as the designer pretty early in the project. Okay, I don't wait till the designer has done at least some job to identify a contractor later on and all. No, I'll identify everyone who are required for that project pretty early on in the project. Now, once I identify them, I sign a multi-party contract. Okay, I say that, okay, all three of us will work together to this project. All six of us will work towards this project. Okay, and then I say, see, this is what the project should achieve. Okay, I'll give you a small example. I say that it should be done in, let's say, $10 million or something like that. Okay, or 10 million rupees. Now, 10 million is a small amount. Okay, you can't even get something out of it. Anyway, let's keep it that way. Or okay, sorry about it. 100 million rupees. Okay, now then I would say that if I achieve a cost minimization and let's say it gets completed in 90 million rupees, that 10 million all of us will share. Okay, but if something happens and the project overshoots budget and it completes in 110 million, that 10 million loss, that overshoot in cost is not only borne by the owner, but all the contractor and the designer, everyone. Okay, so now people are subscribed to your risk profit model. Okay, so people will try to reduce the cost because their profits are dependent on it. Okay, it doesn't matter if you give the next best design, optimized design, etc. It doesn't matter so long as the cost is not $100 million, you will lose the money. Okay, similarly, the contractor will also lose money if he doesn't build to the specifications, etc. Okay, and then there is a very nice way you develop this project goals. It's not very easy to develop these things. Okay, integrated project delivery contract will take a lot of time for you to write. Okay, there are some standard forms now available in FIDIC. If some of you know about the international forms of contract, but it's not easy to write such kind of contracts. Okay, now just to understand that everybody is working, you will also have a collaborated decision making and control. So you actually can put a project board or a management team from all the people. It's not like one single owner who will be project manager or something. You will have everyone. You will have an owner representative, you will have a contractor's representative, you will have a designer's representative, everyone, whoever is a subcontractor, etc. All of them will take a collaborative decision making. Now, whenever a collaboration and coordination comes into picture, understand that role to play, because BIM is known for it. It's the shared data model, right? It's the common data environment. So that is where BIM will help in this, because you have a collaborated decision making and it cannot work without BIM. Okay. Now, the other thing is you cannot in fact, many of the IPD contracts will impose the condition that you waive this option of filing claims and other things. Okay, so the idea is nobody claims, nobody points finger at others. It's about the thing you accept the success or failure as a team. Okay, so don't people won't entertain claims, cost overrun claims, etc. in a integrated project delivery mode. Okay, so you have to be aware of that when you are entering this kind of thing. Okay, now there are a few things which are prerequisites. The first thing is everybody should trust others. This is the most interesting and the difficult part. Okay, because in Indian construction, at least, the owners and contractors, they are known for anything but trust. Okay, you cannot trust a contractor. That's what any owner would tell you if you go to them. Okay, so that's the first and foremost mindset difference which you can do, and that's the biggest problem, because this kind of model, it becomes very difficult to work on a public sector project. Okay, if you are a public agency like CPWD or let's say an agency who is in charge of buildings or something in your even like for example the municipal corporation project, because things have projects in public sector. Okay, now the idea is very intensified early planning. Okay, because you are bringing contractor on board. That means see, if I have a design option, if I say okay, I will build like this, the contractor should come with an input saying that, see, you can do that but at this cost. Okay, so I can always build anything I want to, but I should have that money to build it. Okay, let's say as an architect I say I need about 30 meters cantilever. Okay, immediately the construction guy would say okay, 30 meters cantilever into the valley and all, this is not constructible. Okay, this is not at all feasible. You have to need specialized equipment for it and it will cost a lot. So these kinds of inputs can come very quickly into the project, and therefore you take a lot of nice decisions on the project. Okay, and this is what you, if you are knowing certain information, if you know that there is some problem which is going to come up, don't hide it. Okay, put it up front so that the project can move forward. And um, I should tell you that this is probably one of the biggest problem of our construction site. Okay, there is a saying that 80% of the time every project is on time. Okay, till 80% of the time everybody will tell you, yeah, it will be done, sir. हाँ sir, हो जाएगा, हो जाएगा. Okay, only when the last minute comes, people will say, there is a problem. It will. Okay, same thing happens, right? When you probably report to your managers or something, you usually think that you can overcome certain difficulties and say, yeah, it will be done, it will be done. And finally, when it is out of your hands, you will put it to your top management saying, oh, sorry, this is probably a challenge. It may not be done in this time. Okay. Your students will come back to you. 80% of the time, they say that the assignment will be done and submitted on the same date. But last day before the submission day, they will say, we need some extension, right? So that is not permitted in IPD. You have to bring it upfront so that it can be discussed and sorted out. So if you foresee that the assignment cannot be completed on that date, you tell me upfront saying that, sir, I need more time. Then I can actually give it to you. Okay, so that's the idea of this open communication within the project team. And to do all these things, BIM is very important. Okay, because BIM is the model information on which all these decisions can be taken, and this BIM should be open model which can be accessed by multiple parties. Okay, and in fact lean and IPD can come together very nicely. Okay, in fact all IPD will have these lean principles where again big room meetings, open books, all these kinds of things will come up. Okay, now this is another major obstacle in our environment where you do not want to show your accounts to the other party. In fact, you will see that even schedules, for example, your Microsoft project CPM schedules or something, you have an in-house schedule and a schedule which you submit to client. Okay, many construction companies does that. Okay, because in-house schedule will reflect exactly what it is, but it may not be used for billing, because if you submit that to client, then there might be a lot of disputes. So you try to do some kinds of things there as well. So those things are not permitted. Okay, in an IPD you have to have this kind of open and transparency, then only it will work, otherwise it won't work for you. Okay, now a few things I'll probably conclude with a few small things on points on this. The first and foremost thing which an IPD should have is a multi-party contract. It will delineate roles but integrate the responsibilities. What do I mean by that? It tells you what you should do, like you should design it or you should construct it, but the responsibility is integrated. So if I don't do it, the other party should find a way to do it. Okay, so it's a joint responsibility to get the building done. If someone doesn't perform, the others should help him out, help her out, or they should take it up on themselves. Okay, so something should be happen. So the responsibility is for the entire project team, but the roles are delineated. That's the most important point which you should understand. Okay, the other one which is important for an IPD is they all have a joint incentive scheme. Okay, there is no separate profit for each contractor. There is no separate profit for each thing. So it's not like the designer or the contractor, construction civil contractor will earn profit and the mechanical contractor will lose on the project. Okay, it's either gain or loss for everybody. Okay, you might define the amount of gain. You can say, let's say if I gain about 100 crores on this project, 50 crores will go to general contractor, 60 crore, 20 crores will go to mechanical contractor, 10 crores will be staying back with the owner itself. All these things you can define. The weights you can define that it will go in 3:2:1 ratio or whatever it is, but it will go like that. So if I lose, the same thing will apply. So it is not like one guy will gain, other guy will lose. There is no win-lose game here. Okay, you have to understand this one. Okay, the first thing is roles are delineated, but the responsibility is integrated. The second is the incentive schemes are joint. Okay, so either you lose, everybody lose, or everybody gain. Then you have these nice details. Okay, there is no liability waiver, as I was telling. So you can't claim that because of that guy I suffered a loss. No, it's a team. If everyone suffers, you lose the match. That's all. You can't say I scored a century but that guy ran me out, so that guy is the problem. No, as a team you lost, that's all. Okay, so that is the idea of this. Okay, no liabilities can be attributed to any single person. No finger pointing. As a team, you take a hit. That's all. So project management teams, then project implementation teams, and senior management teams. All of them will come together on this kind of project. Okay, every day implementation is done by PITs or project implementation teams. If you have a problem, you take it to the project management team. If you still have a larger problem, take to the senior management. solve it as a team. That's all. Okay, don't finger point and say that guy is the problem. And many a times, if you put up a case in the court on an IPD contract, it may not have any water in the court because of this kind of contractual structure. Okay, so the idea is BIM facilitates all these things. It facilitates many of these functionalities of IPDs, and it will give you this visualization of data. It will give you this analysis component of the data. See, if you want rapid prototyping, right, the generative designs which we are talking, which IPD wants, because your designers will give you a lot of different designs which the constructor, the contractor, and the client should choose. All those kinds of things are facilitated by BIM very nicely. There are case studies, you can go and check them out. Stutter Health being one, and then there are a few other case studies like the Autodesk thing itself. These are freely available on the web. Please read them. They are they give you a good understanding of what IPD is and how BIM facilitated the implementation of IPD. Okay, for example, in one of these IPD meetings, there was this helicopter pad which was designed on the rooftop of the hospital. And the idea is whenever there is a medical evacuation by air, that helicopter will land and the patients will come down. Okay, and then because of the BIM visualization, where this hospital has shown that to a lot of all the doctors and nurses of the building as well. One of the nurse just stood up and pointed out that there is some problem with the kind of configuration because the oxygen supply cannot be maintained or something like that. Okay, so it's a very thing which actually changed the entire configuration of the helicopter pad. But this could not have been done in the normal environment where you do not have that visualization, and when you do not have that walkthrough where you say that, okay, this is how the helicopter will land and this is how the patient will be brought in. If you don't give that kind of visualization, the clients would never have pointed out that kind of problem. Okay, so these kinds of problems would be solved only through BIM. Okay, and that is why BIM and IPD, they go together. Okay, BIM is kind of a prerequisite when you have an integrated project delivery which you have to do. And the final thing is this will look at win-win scenarios. Okay, this is interesting paradigm because right now it's win-loss. Okay, my loss is your gain. That's what the contracting business right now is. I put a claim, you lose that money, I gain that money. That kind of mindset is what is being challenged by when you have an integrated project delivery. There are some very nice examples in our country as well, which have done on IPD and have derived benefits, but then challenges remain because of the procedural problems, especially when it comes to public projects. When you are bound by certain acts, maybe IPD we have to draft the contracts much more carefully so that they may not get abused. Okay, so IPD is also a problem for that, and that's the issue with some of the public servants in using these things because of this mutual trust and other things, they can easily get abused sometimes if you don't have an open culture. Okay, so that's more or less about IPD. Okay, and the final thing which I would like you to take out of this session is that BIM is as useful as the processes which sustains it. Okay, and the processes it sustains. Okay, it is not out of the world. It is not a panacea to all your sufferings. Okay, so if you just use BIM, it doesn't mean all the problems of the construction site magically vanish. Okay, that BIM will be helpful in solving some of your problems so long as the people and processes support it and you define the right processes and the right people to be supported by the BIM itself. Okay, so if you define a lean process or an IPD process to be supported by BIM and create an environment where the BIM models are created to that effect, then you will derive benefits. Otherwise, BIM will be just another software tool which you install on that computer and that stays like that. Many of us, we do that, right? You have a nice CPM chart which you probably print out on 2 A0 sheets. You stick it in the corner of the project office and forget about it, and then you do your planning and scheduling as usual. Similar thing will happen to BIM if it is just looked as a software. It should be looked as an integrated process, and there should be enough contracts and other processes to support it. Then only you can derive benefits out of it. As we saw, lean and IPD are some major areas where BIM has been very useful, and they also, this nice synergies exist between BIM, IPD, and lean. Okay, so usually BIM is implemented along with these kinds of philosophies, lean and IPD. So that's about it from my side. I'm open to discussions now.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from participants? I think this is the whole key to the BIM, as far as I can understand, the integrated project delivery, because the way the BIM has been perceived is more as a visualization tool. Rather, it is actually, when you are able to visualize it, you are actually able to foresee the problems too. And when these integration of multi-factors, multiple players, multiple stakeholders, makes the project more viable.
I think that's the key.
Yeah, it is the main key. Anybody would like to ask? There was one funny experience that I will tell you while you come up with your questions. I worked with an architect's office for many years after graduation, and way back. Don't guess my age by it, but it's probably 20 years old story, 28, 25 years old. In that architect's office, whatever the IPD process has been explained, the architect used to do it, everything. The architect firm, the office that we had, has group of draftsmen, people who worked on AutoCAD, design, discussions on design. There were 4 or 5 offices of each expert, each consultant, structural engineers, landscape architects, sanitary lines and water supply, plumbing people, and then electrical was completely different, and interior design. All these teams, whenever the project is fixed, the architect finalizes with the client and then calls in all these consultants individually for meetings, and everybody discusses the pros and cons of it. All 6 of them were never at one place in one time. We never had any combined meetings. We always had to deal separately. They brought their drawings, we brought our drawings, and finally the architect was the person who coordinated everything. In this process, one of the person who was a landscape architect was doing an independent project of his own. We went to see it because that was, when I was a student, visiting all the sites was big fun. Visiting any consultant, landscape or interior designers, visiting all these projects, whether they belong to our client or outsider, immaterial was that. So the landscape architect was doing a project where they have done the Shilparamam design. If most of the South Indians probably know, but for those who don't know what is Shilparamam, it's kind of a permanent mela of all crafts and food stuff and kind of open air shopping, relaxing, touristy place. So he was designing this, and then there was the stalls were built. They were planning a grand inaugural. That was the first time being that kind of a project being done in Hyderabad, and then the inaugural was all planned because there was hardly any built structure there. We were experimenting in mud blocks, in rural techniques of construction, bamboo, and then thatch, straw. All these materials were used, traditional building materials were being used to make it look very rustic, rural. So the inaugural was very close. The problem was the grass, the whole area, the landscape architect proposed lawns, some part of the lawns, at least in the beginning, and the lawn wouldn't grow. because the whole rocky terrain and then the soil was in very bad condition, no lawn would grow. So this inaugural was looming on their head and the lawn was not growing, and that time carpet lawns were not there. Old time story. So the whole project would have probably had to postpone the inaugural. The chief minister was invited. That kind of a crux happened. So there was so much of unforeseen factors um, during that time where their integration was not possible, was not cannot be foreseen. Now with WIM and all, and Professor Sir has said that everybody shares the benefits, everybody shares the profits, and everybody shares the losses also. So it makes all of us responsible for completion of the. So that's a good way of completing and completing in time. Anybody wants to ask any questions? Maybe you can share your experiences on projects, project delivery, execution, implementation, unique experiments. Nobody? I hope
Madam,
everyone is following. Yes, sir.
Madam, I have a question.
Sir, please.
Yeah, sir, I think IPD can reduce the time as well as cost when you implement on the projects. So how it is different from lean management tools?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, IPD can reduce, but it's not always a given. For example, if the complexity of a project is really high, then the team as a whole could decide that the project could be delivered on the time, but at a higher cost or something like that. Okay, which happened on some of those projects as well. But it's documented and everybody is on board with it. Okay, it's not like the client is unhappy about it or something like that, right? IPD is probably the philosophy which lean supports. Okay, so actually, if you look at these things, the lines start getting blurred where the IPD ends and where lean starts and all. All of them actually talk about a few things. And the tools which the lean management provides, like your big room meetings or your last planner system, etc., they help a lot in your IPD kind of scenario. Okay, because many of them are integrated into your IPD project delivery contracts. Okay, so lean is probably the philosophy, IPD is probably the implementation of the contract.
Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you. Actually, I have a difference. I thought there is a difference is there in terms of workflow or something like that. So you have cleared that both are the same kind of thing. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Correct. So lean is probably an implementation which onto the project.
But every kind of project will require a lean managers or something like that. Like any kind of criteria is there, like
yeah,
if the project.
I have seen lot of projects where you have a dedicated lean expert or someone, but there are projects where the planner has see, there is always a project planner on a project. If you look at any project organization, there's a project manager under whom there will be an execution team and a planning team. This is like a given for any kind of project. Now, many a times this planning team actually took up this lean instead of going the usual planning way. Okay, so usually the planners on the project, the planning team takes this responsibility of implementing lean. Now, when you implement lean, you have to involve all the people, right? It's not like I sit in that, in front of a computer, use my Primavera and get a CPM out. That's not the way. You have to get the supervisors into a meeting, ask them whether they can do whatever you planned, etc., so that weekly look ahead, all those kinds of things will start coming in. Okay, it's much more than the lead expert. It's about the entire project. That's the problem. And sometimes when the project manager is really into it, you see that the change happens very quickly, but sometimes it doesn't.
Okay. Sir, what about, can you throw some light on value engineering, whether most of the construction projects are going according to the budget, what is allocated, or what is the kind of importance that value engineers will be there in the projects?
See, value engineering is see again a philosophy where you have a design, and then you have these value engineers who are experts at prototyping, these different kinds of solutions, and then understand which kind of design adds the largest value to the customer. And pretty often, this transforms into cost reduction. So you say that for the same specifications which I can build to the owner, if I can reduce the cost in which it is built, that's a value added. So it could be the other way around. For the same cost which I am building, I could deliver a better model or something. That can also be a way. But many times it comes down to cost reduction in the design. Now for that, you need a nice database of cost, and that's what value engineers rely on. And therefore, if you look at value engineers, most of them are quantity surveyors and also having that kind of background, right? So you
Right.
need to have a nice cost information kind of thing. So if I change, let's say, from to the other, what's the impact on the cost? What's the impact on keeping all other things constant? So that's a huge prerequisite for a value engineering. And unfortunately, in our country, there are not many cost databases. So you don't really get an accurate picture, but there are some efforts in that direction, right? Value
Okay.
engineering, again, when you do that, it requires, the way you look at value engineering will be different. If you look at a normal thing where you assign that responsibility to one person and let them do that value engineering for you, and there are nice, consultants who do that, they do it for you, they may not have the entire information of the project. Okay, and that is where probably BIM and IPD can help. When you have all the people on board pretty early on in the project, they give very good inputs to your value engineers. Okay, that
One
way
more,
it will be.
yeah, one more last question, sir.
Okay.
Like when we go into the client, always they about only the initial cost of the project. They will not talk. We cannot convince on the part of life cycle cost.
Mm.
So exactly, if the designer thinks about the life cycle cost, the project cost will be increasing or decreasing, sir. Generally, means in
Uh,
comparative with the initial cost with the life cycle cost.
See, it's the general rule that if you want to decrease your maintenance, you have to put upfront something else, right? So that's the general
Right.
thing. But it may not always be the case, right? There are always cases where you might reduce your capital cost as well as your operations cost as well. Okay, so that is where we are talking about radical innovations. If you have a nice innovation on the project, you could probably reduce both. Now, it all depends on the outlook of the client. If they are having the short-term outlook or a long-term. So, for example, if I am a estate developer, okay, my
Okay.
entire thing is to build the building and book my profit, sell that building to the owner. That's all. The owner is more concerned about the operations and maintenance rather than the real estate developer. So there, if you talk about life cycle costing, no one will listen to you. Okay, because I'm not really owning and operating that building for a 30-40 year period which is there. There is some guy who will buy that apartment from me, and that guy will actually look at this thing, right? So then if you talk about life cycle costing and all, where you say, okay, you put some rooftop solar and or some water heaters and all, probably it won't much traction for them. Okay, but let's say if I am a I have an integrated owner where I also look at operations, maintenance, and probably even demolition, etc. Let's say, for example, I build the airport and operate it for the next 60 years and all. Then I might be much more willing to look at these kinds of upfront investments, because over time, if it saves me a lot, then I will actually probably go for it, right? So it all depends on the outlook of the client.
We
Okay,
have
so
to, the government has to initiate some public policies on that. Something has to go on, sir. Actually,
yeah, I mean,
I thought
see, it
of it.
works both ways. See, if you, I mean, in India at least, if the government initiates something, people will always find a way to circumvent it. Okay,
Right,
so
right, right, right.
unless if there is a business case out of it, it won't find an implementation to whatever. And then government policies and laws will always have side effects as well, something which you did not anticipate, which will come into picture. So you have to be careful how to whether to make it grow organically or to mandate it.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. I really had a great interaction with you. Hope in the next week I'll meet you personally and physically.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
I hope that at least delta of whatever I presented reached out to you, and you had some good points to take, all of you. I see about at least um, 80 odd people have stayed through the presentations, so that's a good sign. It's a good strike rate. So at least if you take a few points out of these presentations, that would be good.
I think there was one more question. Siddharth Deepak wanted to ask, but please go ahead. Since we are past the lunch break, those who wanted to go off from it, go ahead, please log off. But
Yeah, I can stay if someone has a
there
question.
are one or two people who are trying to ask, but he's not. Siddharth? Yeah, no, there is no response.
Okay.
Sorry, sir. He was asking how to post a question in probably the Microsoft Teams is unfamiliar. He has not posted any. Thank you so much, sir, for being with us today. And thank you all the participants for staying. I think sir's presentation is the highlight of today and last 2 days. Thank you for accepting to present to us. And we will be having a closing ceremony day after tomorrow. And then before the closing ceremony, we have a small quiz that all the participants have to answer questions. If you can share some questions for us, I would incorporate into the quiz, sir. Being academicians, I think all of us look forward for the chapter 1 when we start something. Your lectures have enlightened us so much. Thank you so much for participating and joining our program. We look forward to be in touch with you, sir. From us, from Gayatri, we will be in touch with you for further. There was a question that I wanted to ask for my students' sake. Our final year students would like to undertake training in BIM and then become professionals in BIM. So I wanted to ask what is their scope, how far they can go in this. If you can say a few words.
Yeah. So yeah, first of all, thank you all for providing, especially Vijay Garu, for coordinating the entire thing and giving an opportunity. The pleasure is mine as well to interact with so many people. For good or bad, I think the online version also has given a number of participants as well who are coming here. So that's good. Yeah, and in terms of the prospects for BIM, etc., one from the training perspective, one from the opportunities for employment perspective. So training perspective, I think, you have two kinds of trainings. One is essentially on the tool, hands-on. So that's probably provided best by the software vendors, and many of them actually have nice workshops on how to, look at the interface and then how to handle the interface, etc. So what item to click on, what to do, etc. And then some of them are also part of our technical festivals at IIT Bombay as well. Unfortunately, this year we did not have the festival because of the pandemic, but if ever are there, I can put that out for people to check if that's a good idea. The other one is about this whole idea of the procedures, the philosophy behind the tools, with a mix of essentially hands-on. So that's where probably trainings at IIT Bombay of universities would come in, where we just do not discuss the tool and the workings of the tool, but also discuss why it should be used. not only the how it should be used portion, but why it should be used and where it should be used. There was a course earlier, but due to time constraints and all, I couldn't host it again every year. But I would probably make it a regular feature from this year onwards. There might be a course in April or something where some of your students can get trained on these things as well. And I think these kinds of forums, like what you are doing now, the Atal program and all, I think these are excellent opportunities where people can get trained. And slowly, once the faculty gets trained, that will get entrenched into the students. Now, in terms of employment opportunities, I think the business of BIM is picking up now, especially once after it got mandated in other countries, and people are also looking to mandate it in many parts of our country as well. So you see that many people are doing BIM modeling for foreign countries in these outsourcing platforms, what I talked earlier as well. That's one area where you can see there are many startups which are coming, which are employing a lot of people to outsource, to model these outsourced things. Then there are these roles of BIM engineers which are getting created on projects, which are like planning engineers, but who are essentially authors of these BIM models, etc., which is also picking up because many people nowadays are at least having a three-dimensional model of their projects. So that's also picking up. So the skill is essential to have, not only just for that, even if you're a project planner or a project manager, reading the BIM files, understanding what the BIM is telling you, and that also becomes a useful skill to have. That way it will enhance the employment opportunities of, even if you're a structural designer, even if you are a geotechnical engineer, having some exposure to BIM will always help. So that's my take on this two aspects which you asked me.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
If
Good,
there
I
are
think
no further questions, we will take leave, take a break.
there's Kumar Paidipalli who is.
I saw one. Kumar, sir, yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. Hello, this is
Hello.
Kumar. I am actually tomorrow's presenter. I was just pitching in and seeing what's going on, and
Nice.
I really liked your take on BIM. So, talking about these outsourcing firms, we can actually categorize as well as one of those firms, and basically our topic will be looking into what I mean the functionalities of the things which you showed and how we are using it, and we'll give live examples of what all we did. But in general, I think that whatever you presented was like a very good broad overview of BIM, and I just wanted to say it was really good, and I hope students took good information from this presentation. It was a really good overview. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Kumar. Thank you very much. And I think your examples, if you can give some concrete implementations of it, that will augment my presentation very well. So it will complement whatever I told you. So that way, I think
Yes.
we should complement the organizers to
Yes.
have this mix. Excellent. So I would try to join, but I am a little tied up with some other things tomorrow and day after. But
No problem.
I would like to join, or else I will just try to get access to the recording of your presentation. I'll get in touch with you on that.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Rinath, so good that you could join and then interact. I'm so glad that you are here today.
Thank
He is
you,
going
ma'am.
to present as the practitioner's point of view. So, being academicians, we always look forward for your inputs in this.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Professor, for joining. And we'll be in touch with you. We will be hopefully interacting in more other associations other than.
Sure. Yeah, happy
Thanks. Thanks, Sunil, for bringing you to us. And we hope whenever you visit Vizag, please let us know. We'll all meet.
to. Sure.
Let's form one BIM club or something.
Sure. Sounds good. So I would wish you all to stay safe and secure in these kinds of environment, and hopefully we meet in a much more nice physical environment rather than a virtual environment next one. Please all stay safe and stay happy at your homes at least. Thank you.
Thank you.